prosperity, abundance, spirituality, God, the law of circulation. In Unity, we teach that there is, in fact, a law of circulation, that we give and receive, that we are an inlet and an outlet of all that is God. We practice this through tithing of our time, our talent, and our treasure. So what is tithing of our time, and why would we want to tithe our time? A tithe of time you can consider as being that time given to the spiritual practice every day. So often we get so busy in our day-to-day life, right? So busy that we don't take the time to do that which we really value, to do that which we really want to nourish and nurture. We take plenty of time going to school, going to work, doing tasks, making lists. But do we pause and really take the time to nourish and nurture that which helps us to show up for all of those things effectively, efficiently, balanced, centered, whole? When we tithe of our time, it is committing and lifting our energies and our attention into the realm of the higher self, that invisible part of you, of me, where so much of us exists, that is completely connected to the field of wisdom, to the field of intelligence, and to the field of guidance. It is ours to give ourselves that break, to step into a practice of making time for ourselves. Now, this might be meditation and having a practice daily, in the morning, in the evening, whatever it is, 5 minutes to 20 minutes, but time to silence the mind. I even have a friend that I grew up with in Indiana who didn't have a spiritual practice at the time, but we were always having these conversations, and she said to me, "Erin, I never realized all of this stuff you talk about with meditation and practice until I had a child." And she said, then I started realizing that I needed to take a moment, and I would take some time and I would go into a room and I would shut the door and I would do what you talked about. And I would just have silence, just for me, no thinking, no attending to anything else. And she said that time, taking that break, was more renewing than anything else she could do. That in fact it was the tool that gave her what she needed to show up for her life and for her family in a way that felt grounded, centered, and fulfilling. So are we willing? Are we willing to recognize that we are in charge of our time? We are in charge of our day. And we not only owe it to ourselves, but it's our divine birthright. We're born with the ability to manage that time. Are we going to spend that time dedicating it to the source of all creation, to the source of this life force within us, and honor that source by relaxing the body tempo, meditation, prayer, affirmations, doing a wash of affirmations over the being, saying positive things that make a difference, that counteract some of these negative messages we get all day. Putting that time in to simply pause and decompress from all of the to-do lists. Are we willing to take that time and recognize that we are in dominion of how we spend our time? When we do, when we come into that practice, fully recognizing that just like we need to eat, just like we need to sleep, just like we need to shower, we certainly need to take that spiritual pause and that spiritual time for silence. When we recognize that, we expand the land of abundance in which we live, move, and have our being. So what about tithing of talent? Tithing of talent is a beautiful thing, and this is one of my favorite things, because it ties in to, what I kind of think of as the world before this one, the world before everything was purchased and exchanged for money, but the world where you traded goods, you traded gifts, and you traded talents, and you did it out of love. So you found the places where your heart was, found the places where you wanted to see them expand, prosper, grow, and you tithed of your gifts of service. There are so many examples of organizations, families, communities, where there was a great commitment to service that transformed an area of lack, an organization of lack, into an organization of absolute abundance. I always, in all of my classes and all of my workshops, whenever I bring new people into our spiritual community and welcome them, I tell them there is something that you have. There is a gift that is your God-given gift. It's something that is born in you, either a talent that you acquired, a spiritual desire that you never got to express, you never found the place yet to express, whatever it is. But there is something that is yours to do and yours to share, yours to tithe with your spiritual community. Maybe it's even in conversation, supporting someone in conversation, being a listening ear. Maybe it's a talent that you could provide for free. But if someone had to go out and pay for it, it would be more than they could ever afford. But just your presence can transform an experience from being ordinary to being extraordinary. I'm a singer-songwriter, and it's one of my favorite things to offer my music up, to offer that to people. When I know that there's, say, a limited budget or whatever it is, it's just that extra treat that I can say, hey, this is me, this is the flower of my life, and here it is, it's mine to freely give. When I started that practice of giving of myself, giving of my talent, I recognized that there are aspects of self that truly demonstrate this idea that prosperity and abundance comes through divine ideas and spiritual gifts. I said a prayer, Spirit, make a plant out of me, because a plant was the only thing that I could think of that reproduced itself for free. And that from that reproduction, there was abundance and prosperity. There could be exchange. After I said that prayer, my music started to take off, and I realized that it really happened. I could just, from my own heart, create music and then multiply that music and give it out in exchange for good. And then abundance started coming to me through that. Actual money, actual finance, which brings us to the last part of tithing. And that is tithing of our finances. Now, that's something that if you have heard of the old school religion and been turned off, it might not be something that you think of as being relevant to you. I don't have a church, or I don't believe in that system. I don't want to give in those ways. My money is mine and I want to hold it right here. Well, very well, but lives have been transformed by the practice of financial tithing, by taking 10% of all that comes in and dedicating it to source, by looking in your heart and looking in your mind and looking in the world and saying this question: where is my spiritual nourishment coming from? Where do I feel my spiritual home lies? From where am I spiritually fed? When we ask that question with all sincerity, and we take on a practice of looking at that 10% and saying, I have the ability to create prosperity somewhere that seems outside of me, to an organization, a person, a place, a spiritual community. I have the opportunity to use my resources to make something else abundantly blessed and to prosper the good that I want to see in this world. We spend so much money. Money comes in and out of our hands very unconsciously today. And what is money? It's nothing but a representation of our spiritual gifts in circulation. It's our activity in circulation. It's that which we receive for our activity, for our time. Can we make even that practice of money be a spiritual practice? When we do, we recognize that once we can master tithing, we can master anything that has to do with abundance and prosperity. If you can take 10% of your income and say, hey, I'm going to take 10% of this and I'm going to give it to where I'm spiritually fed, and I'm going to take this 90% and I'm going to make that more than enough, then if you can master that, believe me, we can master getting through credit card debts, going through mortgages on homes, balancing our accounts, and creating financial stewardship in a greater way. We have invited a spiritual practice into the circulation of money. And what does that demonstrate? I really believe that that spiritual practice of financial tithing demonstrates the greatest principle. And that principle is that we are all one. That we are all one. That I am not separate from that which seems like it's outside of me. I am not separate from that which seems to be outside of me. And if I am an inlet and an outlet of God, and I am not separate, we are all one, then that practice of financially tithing simply means I am looking at the highest consciousness that is in my being, that is in my life, internally and outside of me. And I am saying, there it is. There is one of the greatest reflections of God, of Source, whatever you want to call it, that I can see. And I will dedicate the top of everything that comes to me to that source, to that demonstration. And I will bless all of the other funds, all of the other finances that come to me in this same way. May they be blessed by this same practice. Those are our practices of tithing. They have transformed lives. They have made people in poverty be people of abundance. They have been practiced throughout the ages. And certainly there is an opportunity for each one of us to look into our hearts and say, how might my life and my spiritual practice transform by actually not just thinking we are all one, not just thinking like the words of the Dalai Lama, we live in a spiritual democracy, we vote with our lives, but by activating it, by voting with our lives, with our time, with our talent, and with our treasure. Namaste.
Hi there, my name is Nian Vuong and I'm a ministerial student here at Unity Institute and Seminary. Unity has had a tremendous impact in my life. I mean, obviously, because I'm here at ministerial school, it's impacted my life in some way, but perhaps less obviously. A big part of why I'm here is that along my spiritual journey, I came to a point where I felt like I wanted to be in community in a way where the people in the community were both very capable of supporting me at the toughest times in my life. The times when I faced the most profound life challenges, whether it was like a financial challenge I experienced a few years ago or a relationship challenge. And at the other end, I found there's some people in the world who could do that really well. They couldn't at the same time also hold my joy. And what I love about the Unity community in particular is that not only is it a space in which I actually feel like I have permission to be deeply joyful, but that I could share about it with others and that it would be received and met with joy in return, that people here are joyful for my happiness. And it's a profound experience to be held at both spectrums of the human experience, if you will. And that, to me, that experience feels like love. So in Unity Community, I found that the principles that are taught are actually lived by the people in the community. That more so than any community that I had researched or looked into in my past. And so that's what kept me here. That's what kept me coming to Unity. And that's what, as a minister, I would like to offer to others. So it's very, very exciting.